of a like sheet in Trieste, La Cittadella, appeared in May 1962. In Melbourne, next one please, L'Eco, the mouthpiece of former members of the Venezia Giulia police force, appeared in March 1977. One of the most frequent and popular activities promoted by Triestine clubs for their members were the excursions, the gite, reminiscent of their excursions on Trieste Scarso, the plateau overlooking the city. And we see here a photo of members of Melbourne San Giusto Club on an excursion around Melbourne. After some 15 years of broken relations between Triestini in Australia and Trieste, in 1971 formal links were re-established between the two parties with the coming to Australia of a delegation led by Trieste's mayor Marcello Spaccini. He was also instrumental in setting up, soon after, the Associazione Giuliani nel Mondo, with the task of assisting Triestini abroad by maintaining contacts and promoting cultural, social and educational activities. A long-serving president of the association was Dario Rinaldi, who energized Triestine communities in Australia and in other countries by organizing, among other things, the coming to Australia of Triestine performers and cultural groups. Can we go back again? This is Marcello Spaccini giving Trieste's flag to the president of the Associazione Trieste, Andreas Cucchi. And in the next one, Dario Rinaldi, during one of his visits to Australia, addressing a gathering of Triestine migrants. In the next one of the cultural groups, the Vecchia Trieste, the old Trieste, performing in Marrickville in Sydney in 1971. By the 1980s, the problem of Triestini abroad who wished to return to what they still call home became topical. Despite some programs of assistance, for most Triestini, long-time residents of Australia, a return proved impossible. It was like emigrating again to a place where they did not know anybody, where housing and jobs were still difficult to find as they were when they left for Australia, where dialect has changed and no longer was universally spoken, where life was more competitive and hectic than down under, and for elder Triestini of Australia, hard to adapt to. Second and third generation Triestini who undertook the rite of passage and visited the city of the elders mainly liked what they saw, but preferred to return to what for them was, understandably, home. One of them characterized Trieste as the place with a culture preaching "non se può," it cannot be done, while in Australia people said "tutto se può se te vuol," everything is possible if you want it. And in the next we see one of these older Triestini group on one of their returns to Trieste in 1985, visiting the castle in Trieste. I understand that some people might find confronting, to say the least, the thesis that Italian governments deliberately engineered the departure of those nationals who were considered, rightly or wrongly, politically or ideologically unreliable. However, documents consulted while researching for this book attest to the veracity of this claim. Furthermore, research carried out by other historians on recently discovered documents validate this thesis. Only recently, the archive of the Ufficio per le zone di confine, the Office for Border Areas, a branch of the Italian Prime Minister Department that operated between 1946 and 1954, has been found and catalogued. The 10,000 files detail the overt and covert initiatives promoted by Rome to defend and foster Italianità, the Italianness of that city. A book published in 2011 by Anna Miller, a Triestine historian, by the title A difficile intesa, a difficult relationship, reveals that Rome devolved to its agent in Trieste 400 million lire in 1946-47, 700 million in 47-48, and 872 million in 1948-49. Enormous amounts for that time, especially in consideration of the parlous state of government finances after the Second World War. This money was approved outside the normal budgetary process by Under Secretary Giulio Andreotti, who was in charge of the office. In addition, the office carried out espionage activities on what was happening in Trieste and on Yugoslav army movements. Large caches of weapons were covertly introduced in Trieste and used by Italian intelligence agents and their people against the Polizia Civile during the 1953 riots. Although research has been done, little research has been done to date on surveillance and subversion activities carried out during this period by Tito's Yugoslavia, there is ample evidence that the communist state matched Italy's effort to influence the situation to its advantage. These are only a few tip-of-the-iceberg examples of how uncertain, complex, polarized and explosive daily life was in Trieste between 1945 and 1954. A city, and one would be led to believe, a country where the fascist slogan, "If you are not with us, you are against us," still enjoy political currency. There was no political space for the middle ground, for people who yearned to be left in peace, who did not side with either revanchist positions. Understandably, nobody wanted to invest in a city with an unpredictable future, and unemployment skyrocketed. As a result, like the cat in the tale written by 17th century French history-teller Charles Perrault by the title Puss in the Boots, Il gatto con gli stivali, Triestini, tired of living in an insecure life, put on their boots and traveled the proverbial 1,000 leagues, yet not to meet the ogre, but to flee from him to faraway Australia. Arguably, they were not as shrewd as the cat in the tale, although they too ended up down under, comfortably, quote, resting during the winter days on a silk cushion in front of the fireplace, or, we may say, in front of the television, and in summer in a nice corner under the veranda. However, they never forgot or forgave the giant nationalist ogre who, during the 1950s, forced them out of their Triestine castle. Thank you. Do you answer the question?
Are there any questions for Gianfranco?
So how many Triestini left Trieste?
20%, 10% of the population. At the time, Trieste had just a bit over 200,000 people. But there was a document in my book, during the whole 20th century, there was a great movement of people through Trieste. For instance, over 100,000 of Jews went via Trieste to Palestine, to Israel, escaping the beginning of the Holocaust. Also, there were large movement of displaced people from Eastern European countries who went through Trieste to other settlement camps in Italy and then migrated to either Australia or Canada in the main. So it was basically taking away from the city of the largest, the most active and qualified workforce in those years. Many of them left having a job in Trieste, but the future, not knowing whether Trieste will be annexed by Yugoslavia or remain under Italian administration, were very, very strong. Only the Treaty of Osimo in 1975 settled forever the dispute between the two countries.
How close to the border is actually Trieste of Yugoslavia?
In the closest point, a bit more than 5 kilometers
5 kilometres.
from the Iron Curtain.
That's today.
Today there is no border because what was Slovenia under Yugoslavia is part of the European Union, and the border between Italy and Yugoslavia is not. You can travel through without any passport, and there is a common currency.
how did they determine who they were going to send or who they were going to put pressure on to immigrate?
Well, at the time, as I document in my book, there were several attempts by the Anglo-American government to keep Triestini, autochthonous Triestini, to remain in Trieste, but the Italian government preferred to bring people escaping from Yugoslavia because of their anti-communism to remain in the city. Triestini, on the other hand, have a very long history, a 200-year-old history of autonomy, independence, and they still wanted to remain independent, rightly or wrongly. And the Anglo-American administration at the beginning favored this move. However, a governor was never appointed because of the Soviet Union opposition to formalize independent free territory. Because the Soviet Union was siding with the communist Yugoslavia, certainly until 1948, before Tito's break.
You say the border is 5 kilometres away.
In the shortest point.
Has it ever been the border on the other side, where Trieste was part of Yugoslavia?
No.
That's never been the case.
Well, only during the 40 days when the Yugoslav army occupied Trieste and the city was formally annexed to the Republic of Slovenia. But then it lasted only for 40 days. And then
After the war, it became two zones: zona A, zona B.
yeah, this is what
That's with the conflict.
that was the so-called compromise reached by the great powers with the Soviet Union, France and England and Germany, to create a buffer zone between Italy and Yugoslavia, calling the Free Territory of Trieste. It was divided in two zones. The Zone A was administered by the Anglo-Americans, and the Zone B by the Yugoslav administration. But while the Zone A remained under Anglo-American administration until 1954, the Zone B was basically annexed to Yugoslavia, although formally still called Zone B.
I was just going to say, that amount of people that you said left Trieste, like the Triestini, did that include all of the thousands that left Istria, like from where my husband came?
Now they were on top of
That was
on top of that, yeah. And there was a large movement of people from Istria, from Fiume, and from Dalmatia already since 1947. As we've seen, the ship Toscana took people from Pola to Venice. Many of them just went through Trieste because the Italian government set up other transit camps. One was in Laterina near Rome, another was in Tuscany, and people were just in transit until they got a visa from the American, Canadian, or Australian authorities. There were camps also in Trieste, but for majority for displaced people until 1951. By end of 1951, all the displaced people from Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and the countries occupied by the Soviet Army were transported out of Trieste to final destinations.
Were your parents, mother and father, Italian, or were they come across the border at all?
Well, there is a saying in Trieste that even the most stupid person speaks 4 languages. And this is true, because you have a mixed population. Trieste was a multicultural city, still is, whereby you have a majority of Italian-speaking population, many of them having Slovene or Croat surnames, because they integrated into the Italian culture. You had 28% of Slovene people, but then you have minorities of Croat, Armenian, Greek, Turks, even small British colony of traders, businessmen, importers, exporters. You have to remember that until 1918, Trieste was the only port of the large Austro-Hungarian Empire, and everything imported by this large empire, which went up to the border of what was later the Soviet Union or Russia, came through Trieste. Trieste was a very rich city. It was the 3rd port in the Mediterranean after Marseille and Genoa. And when the Iron Curtain in 1945, or even before, in 1943, fell at the border, at the outskirts of Trieste, all this hinterland of trade passing by through Trieste, for which Trieste prospered, totally was stopped. And Trieste became isolated.
When you first came to Australia, could you speak English?
Yes,
Where did you learn it?
at the American Information Service, and at school. Although my English was not very good, because even in Trieste, it took me 8 times to say, "How do you do?" before an American could understand me. But I was reading fluently English.
You were not to get tertiary education?
Yes, yes, here, yeah,
What, Sydney University?
correct. But many Triestini learned and spoke English because for 10 years of Anglo-American administration, some were working. There were 10,000 Triestini working in the administration, in the Anglo-American administration, and another 10,000 went through the police force, and also many learning English there.
Did you come out here alone or with your brothers and sisters? Or?
My brother emigrated here in 55, and I came here with my parents in 62.
Do I understand that the Triestini that left after 1954, they actually wanted Trieste to be self-governing, not Italian, or am I wrong?
Many of them did, although they are not exact statistic, but all of them escaped this insecure situation of having no job or having lost a job. 20,000 of them lost the job when the American administration left, having no certainty of either political or economic security. You have to remember that Tito's Yugoslavia didn't relinquish its claim on Trieste until 1975, when with the Osimo Treaty, the two countries settled once and for all the issue of Trieste. Trieste, and the Italian government entered in Trieste in 1954, not having full sovereignty on the territory, but only being granted the administration of it. So the question mark, who is the sovereign power in Trieste, was still left left in doubt, and a lot of people were very insecure, felt insecure for that, and decided to leave the city. In fact, this situation was, and again in my book I document that, was kept ambiguous even very in the early 70s, even before the Treaty of Osimo. The then Prime Minister said in a paper revealed years after that there was a plan by the Italian government, and that after Tito's death, it was expected the Soviet Union would invade Yugoslavia and the Red Army would invade Trieste. And it was agreed to leave the Carabinieri in Trieste for the maintenance of public order and leave the Soviet Army to control the city. So it sounded like fantapolitics at the moment, but people were living under this situation. It wasn't very pleasant. On top of that, you have the ethnic rivalry between the minorities. In the 50s, 40s certainly, clashes in the streets by the opposing nationalisms, and no future.